pyramids were built to house the pharaohs for eternity, but the stones would fail them. Run by treasure seekers. There was no stopping the looting and plunder to come. A pharaoh's tomb was designed to protect his treasure and provide his mummy safe passage through eternity. But the lure of royal treasure was irresistible. Despite the royal architect's best efforts, the tombs were violated. The great stone walls could not protect the kings from the greed in the hearts of men. The intruders might be simple robbers, members of the king's own priesthood, or even the very builders of the tomb itself. Actual trial transcripts found on an ancient papyrus reveal their greed.
We broke through and found the pharaoh lying at the rear of the tomb. We took all his possessions of gold, silver, and bronze and divided them between us. Amun-Panafer of Karnak, temple stonemason.
And the plunder continued down through the centuries. In the unbridled looting of the 1800s, nothing was sacred. A giant head of Ramses was dragged from the desert and brought to the British Museum.